Hello and welcome to another episode of Take 10. Today I have the distinct pleasure of interviewing Dr. Bryan Appleby-Wineberg. He is the head of brass and trumpet professor here at Rowan University, as well as solo cornet of the Atlantic Brass Band, principal trumpet of the Bay Atlantic Symphony, and a founder of the trumpet sextet Trumba Mundi. So thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us today.
My pleasure. Glad to be here.
So like I said, you're very, very busy with all these different ensembles and teaching and all this stuff you've got going on. How do you structure your practice to make sure that you stay on top of your game and make sure you get all the stuff you need to do get done, and make sure you get, everything where it needs to be?
Yeah, it's a good question. So part of it is just motivation to get it all done. And a lot of that is fear-based practice.
Yeah.
So you don't want to embarrass yourself in front of people who've paid to come to a concert. And so I just try and find time every day to get a little bit better at what I'm trying to do. So I have sort of some rough outlines. When the orchestra is working, it's not a huge orchestra, and we don't often do extremely technical material. That comes up, it's a couple weeks out, and I can just add that to my afternoon practice, evening practice routine. So basically I do technique and chop development in the morning first thing, and it's changed recently. I'm about 7 weeks into just about to start week 7 into this new routine. And so that's first thing in the morning. And then in the afternoon before I go home, I'll do some more time just on literature, and that's whatever's coming up. And then at night, I'll do a little bit more at home if I have to. We're around 3 hours a day, maybe a little bit more, plus playing in lessons with students. I'm trying to hit all of those things that I have coming up. So the brass band does contest every year. We just did a big brass festival where we played our contest pieces, and there are things in the test pieces that I can't play. It's just a matter of allocating time every day, maybe even as little as half an hour, to work on an 8-bar phrase and literally play it hundreds of times. And then over the course of several months, that hopefully gets to the level where I'm not embarrassed and I don't let my colleagues down when we go to the competition.
When I was solo trombone of the Atlantic Brass Band, the test pieces are just insanely hard. So can you just talk about, like you said, like an 8-bar phrase for half an hour? How do you go about those 8 bars for half an hour?
It's a great question. So I'm breaking things down beat by beat, measure by measure, and sort of building out from that point. And it depends on what I'm practicing, but a lot of what I'm practicing is really hard and really technical. And so I'll be playing stuff very slowly. I'll also be playing stuff faster than I can play it. There's a piece we're working on now, and I have a solo that's twisty with the fingers and also covers about 2 octaves, and it's about 8 bars long. And it's really fast. It's at quarter note equals 300. And so it's super fast, and it's kind of angular, and it's a lot of slurring, so it requires a bit of lip dexterity. So what I did was I started at quarter note equals 60, and I have to get to quarter note equals 300. And I did single clicks. But when I got in the 200s, I wasn't able to actually do single clicks. Like I couldn't adjust fast enough. So then I used, there's a trombonist teaches at Troy named Jason Solomon, a bass trombonist, and he's got some really interesting theories about motor learning and how to play fast material. So what I was actually doing is I was actually going 10 clicks faster than I could actually play, and I would play the passage, then I would reset 10 clicks slower, and then I would fill in all the gaps. And then I'd do another 10-click leap, and then come back and reset and fill in all the clicks. And that seemed to work a lot better. And then he also has a thing called chaining, where you're just adding one note at a time. So you're at tempo, but you just play one note until that's comfortable at that speed. And then you're playing two notes of the passage at that speed. And you add all the way to the end. So all the way through the eight measures, which is a lot. And then you start at the end with one note and you add all the way back to the beginning. And at that point, you've done forward chaining, backward chaining, and then he does what's called problem chaining. So there are passages still in there that aren't quite right. So you do those two notes and add one after, add one before. And this is all at tempo. So I've done all of that stuff. And then I'll actually change the rhythms. So if it's a group of 4 notes, I'll play the first note slow, the second note as fast as I can, the third note slow, the fourth note as fast as I can. Then I'll switch that. A friend of mine, a violinist friend of mine, told me about this. She was teaching my daughters, and I actually overheard it and said, "Hey, what do you do? What is that? Can you explain that to me?" She calls it half fast practicing. So she groups the notes, that half of them, and she plays really fast, and then half of them she plays really slowly. And then she rotates around which 2 notes those are. So the first 2 notes really fast, the second 2 notes really slow, then the first 2 notes really slowly, the second 2 notes really fast, then the middle 2 notes really fast, then the outside notes really fast. Then grouping the first note really slowly, the next 3 really fast, and then reversing that, the first 3 really fast, the last one really slow, and then just every other, and then reversing that. So it's like 7 or 8 permutations of different rhythms that also really helps you negotiate around the horn. It does take a long time, but just trying to play through it randomly or at speed all the time takes forever because you never get there.
Yeah.
So this way you actually have a shot at doing it. And I think it's pretty much how practicing looks for people who want to play really well. They take things apart, really small chunks over many days and weeks, and it gets better. And that people who are concerned about maybe other things in their lives are trying to play through a whole piece and then a whole piece and a whole piece. I think eventually you have to get there to play through the whole piece, but you have to take your time and take small chunks. And it's okay to make mistakes. The idea is that we correct the mistakes and we take our time doing small units. I think that's really important to learning a new piece.
Yeah, you definitely can't cram for a new piece. You have to learn it over a long time.
That's right. Yeah. Cramming doesn't work.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work. And so when you see people who are, quote, successful and they seem like they're an overnight wonder, it's actually not the case. You're actually witnessing years and years of preparation that nobody ever saw or was part of, and then all of a sudden they've given an opportunity, but they have all these years of practicing, so they're ready for that opportunity when it's presented.
So you've talked a lot about how to prep the technical aspect of the music. Now, how do you take that technical aspect and then add music to it?
So you have to have all these techniques in your arsenal, and then you're going to try and play, quote, musically. Basically, you have a toolkit and you're trying to use the toolkit in what you're required to play. So I listen to a lot of recordings. I don't listen to a lot of trumpet players playing to get musical ideas. There are some obviously amazing trumpet musicians out there, but I think that our best musicians are violinists, cellists, and singers. So I'm looking to them for more musical inspiration.
Now, who do you like to listen to off the top of your head for
So I'm a big fan of Janos Starker, the cellist. I'm a big fan of Cecilia Bartoli, the singer.
I saw her live one time.
Oh.
Fantastic.
So that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
For low voice, I love Robert Hale. I grew up listening to him. I saw him live singing Wotan in Cleveland. It's pretty outrageous. Yeah. And for violinists, maybe like Anna-Sophie Mutter as a violinist. I love her Brahms. So I'm looking to those types of players to get ideas about how the musical line should go. And then I'm asking my students and myself, when you're trying to play, quote, musically, how would you sing it? That constant internal audiation of how the musical line works. So singing in your head, the dynamic, the tone color, the actual pitch, speaking the articulation in your head as a path to a much more musical performance. Rather than, as my teacher in the Met, Peter Bond, he used to say, air is not music, which is true. It's a great metaphor. Using air is a great metaphor for how the instrument works. It's not actually how the instrument works, but it's a great metaphor for that feeling and that flow. And I use it in my own playing. But it's not music, and the way to get music is how would you sing the inflection vocally? So actually practicing that. So I have my students sing the phrase, or I'll play while they sing, and singing musically, trying to make the dynamics, trying to make the emphasis and the inflection, I think is a really crucial part of developing musicianship. That's what you bring to the musical side. We're all in this because we want to play music, not because we want to play exercises. The exercises are so, it's just like an athlete. Everybody loves to play the game, whatever the game is. But you have to do a bunch of exercises to get your body in condition to play the game, but also there's techniques required of you in the game. So you want to practice those techniques so when you get in the game, you can use them. And we do the same thing in music. That's sort of the idea. So I have sort of these 10 things I write down for my students. So to be sort of a great brass musician, you have to have a great sound. You have to have range, endurance, flexibility, articulation. That deals with initial attacks and different kinds of attacks.
And the release too.
Yep, exactly. You have to have finger dexterity or slide dexterity. You have to have good time and pulse. And over the top of that is rhythm. You have to have good pitch. So some people call that intonation. So you have to know what that is and how to deal with it. You have to be able to play with dynamics, and then you have to know how to play a musical line. So those sort of, I could just call those the 10 things.
Yeah.
And so then I saw a masterclass, Håkan Hardenberger, and he was talking about all your techniques and how he deals with his daily practice. And he has all his techniques here, and every day one of them is trying to leave the circle. So he's just trying to figure out which one it is that's trying to leave that day and bring them back in to control them. So it's just those ideas, and I'm trying to keep them all
in your toolbox.
Yeah, each day. And I'm not always successful at that. And, I mean, to err is human.